my father officially started in 1937 with this formal name, Universal Typewriter Company, which again started in Lahore. 10 years later, the partition happened. So from Lahore, he moved to Bombay.
How is it different from a keyboard in a laptop?
Well, the keyboard is the same, but when you do it on a typewriter, as youngsters have come and told me, they enjoy the tick-tick sound of the typewriter and the very visual of mechanical movement of the bar going and hitting the paper, and hard copy is being produced instantly. That gives them a pep up.
And who's the newest person?
Well, a 20-year-old employee is a new person. She is working with me for the last 20 years. She is from Kerala.
From last 20 years?
Yeah,
So she's not 20 years old. She's working for 20 years. All right. Oh.
20 years.
She's the newest person.
Yeah, she's the newest person.
We have a youngster.
From as expensive a typewriter coming from abroad, we started making typewriters in India, and we were making 2 lakh typewriters annually.
There were orders being placed for typewriters which was so costly that you had to sell a car to buy it.
Yes.
So what was the making of those typewriters and what went into those? Why were they so costly?
Engineering products, I think, in general, were very expensive at that time.
I remember my father was in the army headquarters, primarily now the RAW, and he knew shorthand. So I know the family very well, because I was telling her that I am now going to do swimming. She wanted me to join her in the swimming class.
Yeah.
I said, sorry, I can't come because 5:30 I get off from work, and from there going to National Stadium to swim, it will be difficult. He said, no, Rajesh goes for swimming too. So, and he lives in your area, where you live. So he'll drop you, he has a mobile. So then I kind of plonked myself on the mobile, and then a few months later, we had yes, it is a love story.
So, I wanted to start this podcast on the note that we have somebody here who runs an organization which is 112 years old.
Not as an organization.
Yeah.
As an organization, we started in 1937. But as a family, we are doing typewriters for the last 100 plus years.
100 plus years, 100 some. And in today's generation where most startups come into, so for example, I once went to the startup event and I came across a person in the lift. And I said, are you going for the startup event? And he said, no, I'm not going. So I said, why? He said, I used to go there 2 years ago, but now my startup is closed. So now I'm just going to party in the 3rd floor. The startup event was the 4th floor.
Okay.
That's where we are today. And then we have an organization which is 100 plus years old. So it is gold in terms of learning. But more than that, instead of starting on that note, when I got to know that there is a love story here. Right?
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm somebody who believes that it is love that leads to life. Without love, there is no life, because it is love that leads to everything.
No
Passion,
doubt. No
work,
doubt.
everything is love.
Of course.
So this organization, this company, this legacy of 100 plus years and this love story, which spreads across timelines of partition, of events,
years.
50 years. Let's start with that. What is the story?
I can start with my story of family being into typewriters first. To tell you precisely, 1912 is the year when my maternal grandfather, he joined the best typewriter company at that time, Remington Rand Incorporated. In their Lahore office, he joined as a sales officer. And at that time, we have heard from him, as a child I have heard from him, that at that time he used to tour various countries to get orders for typewriters. Like his sales territory was Afghanistan, India, Ceylon and Burma. He used to tour these 4 countries to get orders for typewriters. And then it continued in the family. My father officially started in 1937 with this formal name, Universal Typewriter Company, which again started in Lahore. 10 years later, the partition happened. So from Lahore, he moved to Bombay.
So it is Universal Typewriter and Co. now, or it
Yeah.
is the same? Okay, it is.
Universal Typewriter Company, though it's a proprietorship company,
Yeah.
but we have it in the form of a company.
And when it started, you said he traveled to get orders.
That was my grandfather.
So this podcast is being heard by an audience which has no concept of that form of marketing, right? Because today we just place the ad on Instagram and it just goes out and gets people.
Correct.
So what was the world? What are some stories from marketing of that day? What was it like?
Of that time.
Yeah.
See, the point is at that time, typewriter as a product has taken a proper form after the first typewriter registration that happened in 1856 in the US. And then, it kept developing in the form of a proper typewriter. By 1910, the typewriters came to the Asian subcontinent and India.
Okay.
They were being manufactured only in Europe and America before that.
Okay.
And by 1910, the typewriter as a product had taken a proper shape and it had developed as a office equipment.
And is it true that at some point there were orders being placed for typewriters which was so costly that you had to sell a car to buy it?
Yes.
So what was the making of those typewriters and what went into those? Why were they so costly?
Engineering products, I think, in general, were very expensive at that time. People were so used to their home things, home-generated things, that any engineering equipment, it was expensive because of the inputs that went in at that time. Very few people were educated. Very few people were technically trained to develop a product, engineering product. That's why it was very expensive. And not only in 1920s or so, as late as after independence of India, Godrej manufactured the first Indian typewriter. And they sold their first typewriter way back in 1954, I think, for 630 rupees.
Yeah, and for those times, that's...
And that 630 rupees, when I show this price to some people who come and ask for the history of typewriters, they say, you are saying 1954, 630. So one youngster told me, you check the gold price on Google in 1954. It was 100 rupees for 10 grams.
Oh my God.
So a typewriter was as expensive as something like 60 grams of gold today.
Yeah, because most people were salaried 1,000 rupees, 1,500, 2,000 rupees, if I'm not wrong.
The monthly salary of a senior person at that time was a few hundred.
Oh.
Limited people were touching 1,000.
So this is 1950s. Yeah, oh, right.
I'm talking of early 50s.
Yeah. So that time it was,
And the beauty of this product is that with the passing of time, it became so common for use in offices, in personal use and all that, that finally in 1990s, a country like India was producing 2 lakh typewriters annually. From as expensive a typewriter coming from abroad, we started making typewriters in India and we were making 2 lakh typewriters annually.
And along this journey, when did you happen to meet ma'am? And how did that happen?
Well, my meeting her has nothing to do with typewriters as such.
But still.
We in our friend circle, I used to go for swimming. She used to come for swimming. So that's where we met. And I think in less than a few days, it was not even a month, that we realized that we have some similar likings.
Yeah. Right.
And that's how the relation grew.
If I may intervene, he says there was nothing, I had nothing to do with the typewriters, but I have a slightly different story. Because at that time, I was working in All India Radio, and a friend of mine in Mumbai was coming to Delhi. Wanted to send me a gift from Mumbai, in fact.
Yeah.
And sent a message to me. Sent a message to me by phone, I think. We used to have landlines those days. that there is a person called Rajesh Palta in New Delhi who runs a typewriter showroom. I am sending the sari for you uh, to his place because he has a setup in the central Delhi.
Yeah.
So you collect the sari from there.
Okay.
So that is how I came to know there was someone existed there by this name. And I, along with a friend, because those days were the days when we were not as free as today the youngsters are, that going to a boy's place, like, yeah, what, Achama, what are you doing? Why should I go to a boy's place to collect my sari? So I took a friend along. So this friend of mine said, oh, I know the place. So that was great. The first time that we reached there, both of us, this gentleman was not there. So his brother said that he's not there. What's the job like? Says, I have a gift from a friend of mine from Mumbai, so I have come to collect it. So I'm sorry, you'll have to come again. So I went again and collected my sari, and our introduction was done. And this friend of mine told me that, this boy wants to go back to the village, wanted to go back to the village after Hindu college that he studied in. And we were all in Miranda House, and Hindu college and Miranda House in Delhi University are almost the neighbors there. And this boy, we've heard, wanted to pursue agriculture because he was very influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. And he didn't, this person,
You want to pursue agriculture?
he wanted to do
yes.
actual farming.
Oh.
And he left Delhi University,
Okay.
joined there, and this friend of mine knew that.
Oh, all right. And you were a journalist.
And I was a journalist, so I had to catch it.
Right.
So a few days later, he said, and I'm telling you the precise meeting because
yes.
women would remember the meetings more passionately than probably men.
I was actually about to point that out because there were minor differences in the
Yes,
story
yes.
compared to what you said.
So we kind of got to meet, and a few days later, I took up a job with the National Museum as an anthropologist, and this was right in the heart of the city, which is called Mandi House, the drama hub, etc., etc. And I was there, and this friend of mine comes to me, Sunita, you remember that boy from where you picked up the sari? I said, yeah. So he says, he's a good friend, and we used to, as children, go to Bal Bhavan together. So I know the family very well. Because I was telling her that I am now going to do swimming. She wanted me to join her in the swimming class.
Yeah.
I said, sorry, I can't come because 5:30 I get off from work, and from there going to National Stadium to swim, it will be difficult. He said, no, Rajesh goes for swimming too. So, and he lives in your area.
Yeah.
Where you live. So he'll drop you, he has a mobile. So then I kind of plonked myself on the mobike, and then a few months later, we had it is a love story.
Yeah, now that she's told about the personal life, I'll tell you something interesting.
Yeah.
As a family, we were into business of typewriters.
Yeah.
Starting with my grandfather's being into typewriters. But immediately after my graduation, somehow I got interested in Gandhi literature. And I actually wanted to start a rural life, which I did. Immediately after my graduation from Hindu College, Delhi University, I went to my native village. I did farming for 5 years.
Oh.
Yes.
But then something happened at family level that my mother kept saying, why do you want to go away from home? Come back
Why did you
home."
want to do that? What inspired that?
The Gandhian
those 5 years?
literature, had that impact on me. Vinoba Bhave, going to villages, all that. So I actually did that. And I can say one of my best parts of life was those 5 years in the rural area.
Wow.
But then finally I came back. I joined my family business.
Was there a lot of learning that you took from those 5 years as well?
A lot, of course, a lot.
Could you share?
Born and brought up in Bombay and Delhi, when I went to the village, I was really surprised to see the kind of social bonding villagers have with each other. Like, for example, I'm sitting on the ground floor courtyard of my house, and there are 4 or 5 villages around, and one fellow passes through that street, and all those 4 or 5 people say, "Who is this guy?" A stranger passing through that street is a question for 4 5 people. They know each other so very well. They address each individual with the parent's name. अरे ये उनका बेटा जा रहा है, ये उनकी बेटी जा रही है, ये इसके पास ये है. I remember one guy was very popular in the village. I said, what is his credential to be popular? He said, he is the guy who brought the first radio in the village. And I'm talking of 70s, early 1970s. The guy was popular because he got the first radio in the village.
So the kind of social bonding that even I have seen it present in villages, it's not there in metropolitan cities. People are much more distant in metropolitan cities. Actually, we did a podcast on this called Bangalore
Not only
and
much
Loneliness.
more distant, they don't know their neighbors.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Which is very, I should say, sad.
Which is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it's a blessing also.
And a curse. And a curse. So, yeah, and I heard that there is a story that goes through partition as well.
Yeah, that is about the typewriters also. Because as I told you, my grandfather, he started selling typewriters as a sales officer with a company, Remington Rand. And he attracted his son-in-law, that's my father, into this trade. And my father finally started with the name Universal Typewriter Company formally in the year 1937 in Lahore. And 10 years later, the partition happened. So from Lahore, he moved to the next best city business-wise, that is Bombay.
Right.
And we have a proper setup in Bombay even today, but not very active because my eldest brother, he is now 88 years of age. And I take the responsibility of continuing the family tradition of selling and dealing in typewriters
Right.
from Delhi.
Yeah.
And I continue all this despite so many ups and downs in the trade itself. The manufacturing stopped from 2 lakh typewriters annually in India alone. We are now 0 typewriters being manufactured anywhere in the world for the last more than 15 years.
Right.
But the beauty of the product is that it still serves many people. And once we restore a typewriter, it goes on for many years more. That is the beauty of the product.
Right.
The engineering product called typewriter.
Actually, I had a couple of questions around the typewriter. So when I was doing research for this podcast, I came across a couple of writers who I had a word with, and they sort of asked me a couple of questions which I found very interesting to somebody who wants to purchase a typewriter or somebody who wants to get to know the product better. I actually named this segment "Get to Know the Typewriter." So, when it comes to actual functionality of a keyboard and a typewriter, I've heard that you need shorthand, right? The old, technique of shorthand typing for a typewriter. Is that true or is that a myth?
Shorthand is just a way of writing it fast.
But there
While
is no.
taking
That's
dictation.
It's a
language.
myth.
That's primarily because I learned shorthand also.
Oh, okay.
That's language. As a journalist,
That's
you
just a
need
writing
it too.
language.
Okay.
And why it is associated with typing is because even today many people do that. First you take the dictation in shorthand or longhand, whatever. And finally the product is, the idea is to bring it out in the form of a hard copy. For that, typewriter was the only equipment. So
that's why
shorthand
it
and
got
typing went
associated.
together.
Earlier, I remember as students, we had heard that girls or boys who did not want to pursue higher studies would go in for typing shorthand because they would find good jobs in private offices and government offices too. But private offices were preferred because they needed English speaking, typing, and shorthand. Only typing, salary is less. And if you know shorthand also, because the bosses would dictate,
Yeah.
and the shorthand person who's adept at
Writing
shorthand
fast.
writing fast, they would just say, in minutes you would do it, and the typewriter subsequently will elaborate on that.
And what is shorthand? Like as a-
Shorthand is the symbols. Say for if you have to write today, there'll be only one symbol for
Oh.
today. You don't have to write TODAY. So today, met so and so. So all that. So for us, it was compulsory. I studied at Indian Institute of Mass Communication,
Oh.
and one had to clear the papers, typing and shorthand, if you want to be a journalist. particularly print media.
So how did shorthand go out of trend then?
Out of trend because the computers came. Why did you need shorthand? Because computer was doing all the job.
What about in press
Even
conferences?
today,
Yeah.
even today, in press conferences, all you have the recording equipment.
Right.
You carry the
Yes,
recorders.
Yeah.
You don't need, because you get actually on the job. Somebody is speaking and you are recording it. So there's no way to go haywire. You will not misrepresent. The digital media and the recording equipment brought shorthand out of league, in the sense that you don't need manual intervention.
The dictaphones killed shorthand.
Yeah.
I started
Yeah.
with dictaphones in my earlier years when I was in journalism.
So shorthand is associated with typewriting, but you don't need to know shorthand to do this. Because somebody said this. These are all rumors. I'm just trying to break them on the podcast. Somebody told me that you need to know shorthand to type on type. You don't need
not
that.
really.
Not at all.
Not really. You don't need. You
And
don't need.
how
In
it-
fact, you need shorthand to be adept at your, if you don't have dictaphones, etc., etc. Then you will need. I think people still do need, and for most because it's most confidential.
Yeah.
That's the main aspect of shorthand. If a boss, if the GM of a company dictates, and if it has been taken in shorthand, nobody would able to kind of know unless you know shorthand.
Oh, that is actually
So how
pretty
about
cool.
this is secrecy.
Yeah, that's
All the
another
secret
aspect of
documents.
shorthand language.
I remember my father was in the army headquarters, primarily now the RAW, and he knew shorthand, and he would tell us the symbols. And I remember whenever my teachers asked me, "Where is your father?" So we were not supposed to say. My father would say, "Just say government job." We would come back and ask my father, "Where do you work?" My teacher asked me, says, "You say army headquarters. That's the best you can say." And then subsequently, my father would write in shorthand and even explain to us sometimes. That's how I know, why the secrecy is so important in shorthand. In the government documents, you would see shorthand. They would not type it subsequently.
I think it can still be used.
It is still
many
used.
ways, yeah.
There are many people.
Yeah,
who
now
are
it is
very good
used
at
only for
taking
writing it
dictations.
fast.
Taking dictations.
As a writer, I think it's very
If you're
useful.
not recording. See,
Yeah.
recording sometimes comes as, if you put a dictaphone in front of somebody may kind of object to it. Ki, kya mere samne
That's
rakh
what
diya?
I was saying. Yeah.
People don't appreciate it.
So, as a writer, when we go to take interviews for the book or the story, and as you rightly said, if somebody is, if we keep a voice recorder, or even if we keep a phone and we say we're recording you,
It's not appreciated.
yeah, so it's always best to just secretly write it down, whatever they're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, for that, yes, shorthand can be very useful.
Yeah. So actually, the next question was that in what ways is a typewriter, for somebody who's listening to this right now, right? They would be wondering of purchasing a typewriter for their writing. Now, one great thing is that there's no distraction because it's a laptop. Now, there are multiple tabs open. Anytime a tab is open, it's also open in your brain.
Yes,
You're parallelly processing.
exactly.
Having a distraction-free space where you just have a table and a typewriter and your book, it's amazing. But when it comes to the keyboard, the actual machine, how is it different from a keyboard in a laptop?
Well, the keyboard is the same, but when you do it on a typewriter, as youngsters have come and told me, they enjoy the tick tick sound of the typewriter and the very visual of mechanical movement of the bar going and hitting the paper, and hard copy is being produced instantly. That gives them a pep up. Particularly the creative people, they enjoy that. And the other part, of course, is the secrecy. Your typed paper cannot be copied as such, like on a computer it can be.
Right, that's also there.
And another aspect about typewriter paper is that once you type on a typewriter, that paper the print will last 100 years, no fading, nothing. A typewriter ribbon produces a hard copy which lasts 100 years. You can see typed papers as old as 50, 60, 70 years old.
How much
Perfect.
does Google preserve?
The paper will go, but the
don't know the
print will
number.
not go.
Yes. So maybe
The
it's
paper
more
will
than
go, but
that.
the print will not go.
Do we need a special paper for typewriters? Was it
Any
normal
ordinary
A4
paper.
size paper?
Any ordinary paper.
Bond paper.
No, not necessary. Any paper. Handmade papers, copy paper,
Yeah, one can.
bond papers, even cards. You can type on cards also.
And how many categories of typewriters are there?
Categories on different parameters. One is, of course, the size, the desktop, and the portables.
There are portable typewriters also,
Portable typewriters.
which are like smaller.
Yeah, smaller. You can actually carry them. And amongst portables, again, there are categories: very small baby portables, medium size, or comparatively bigger ones. Then there are categories age-wise.
So, from a writer's perspective, when I like now, I mean, I'm a young author because my first book is in process. It'll be out, in fact, by the time this podcast is released in next 20 days. One of the toughest things to do is get in the zone,
Correct?
right? Because when you're in an agitated space, stories don't come to you.
It won't.
Yeah, right. So it comes to you when you're in that space and just flows. What I've noticed about typewriter is that it gets you in the space because it has. So
He has a story to
Here
tell
I'll
about
here
that.
I'll tell you a very interesting fact. A young boy came to me, never used a typewriter. I want to buy a typewriter. I said, "Oh, okay." I showed him various machines. He selected a particular machine. My technicians told him how to operate. Finally, he made the payment and all. And while carrying the typewriter in his hand, before coming, he told me that I am coming from Greater Kailash, which is very close by to my office in New Delhi. So while leaving, he was holding the typewriter in his hand and he said, "I'm going to Manali." I said, "You said you are from Greater Kailash." He said, "I was just waiting for the typewriter. Now that I have it in my hand, I am booked for Manali." And he went, and in less than 6 months, he sent me a message which says, "My first book is published on Amazon, and I am very happy to tell you all this because the entire script was done on the typewriter I got from you."
And, also
And after
another
that, I have
story.
so many
There's another
youngsters doing
story,
that.
If you're forgetting,
What is that?
that's the story when you ask this person that why are you buying a typewriter, and he says, "My boss told me, or my teacher told me that take to the typewriter." One writer
Yeah,
like you
that is also there.
was not
Yes.
able to pen down words. It wasn't coming to him. As you said, the
Yeah.
thoughts flow only when there's a space kind of ready to take you or take your thoughts. So he asked him, "Why do you want to buy a typewriter?" He's just curious. So he says, "Lately I have written 2 books. For my 3rd book, I was not able to get some good thoughts, or I was not able to come in the proper frame of mind. So I went to my teacher, or whosoever his guru was, and the guru said, okay, from computer, come down to the typewriter.
And he
Leave
said
the
it worked.
computer.
and
And maybe you can take the tip for this, that you come to the typewriter, because in computer you immediately erase your thoughts. If you write a line, if you type a line, I have experienced that myself. I used to do big stories I was working with the Yamuna Action Plan. There was a bit of a controversy about the cleaning of rivers, etc., etc. So whatever we were doing, one thought comes and I pen it down. I put it down on my computer and then let it go, because it takes no time to write again. So I write the 3rd line. Finally, what I realized was the first ever thought which came, I carried it in the story that I was doing. They say because your brain tells you with the typewriter, because the thought is very contained, because you can't erase it when you are on a typewriter. So you are careful. You reread it
right.
to feel, and the brain takes that element of concentration. And this person who was telling this, he says, and I followed my guru's advice and took to typewriter, and I became what I used to be on writing table.
Well, actually, to be honest, I have something to add to that also. I recently read a couple of weeks ago, in fact, that anything that excites you cannot help you concentrate. This is the thing. So, if there is nervous excitement which is happening because of the light of the laptop has light.
Yeah,
And as a
light
writer,
also.
you have to spend hours and hours and hours
I
in
know.
front of the laptop. So if there is nervous excitement happening, it actually takes away from concentration.
Correct.
Anything that excites doesn't help you concentrate. And anything where you feel concentrated, you're not excited anymore. It's a thing.
Very true.
Also, I was interested because, as I told you, my dad used to have a typewriter. And I don't know, I have this. So he used to have an old Vespa, blue Vespa, and big one, big scooter. So I used to stand in the front of it and he used to ride the Vespa. So recently I came across Vespa launched a new series of scooters which look like the old Vespa.
Yes.
So I immediately got that. Similarly, my dad had this typewriter which used to come in a box. It was a big box and you would just open it and you could do it.
Maybe having that brand.
So I loved it so much growing up. I don't know why. That's why and recently I went to Cubbon Park and I saw somebody sitting there with a typewriter and typing. So in Cubbon Park, a lot of writers come. So you will see them sitting and just writing here in Bangalore.
Yeah. They do.
And there was somebody with a typewriter who was sitting and typing. So
You're
it
talking
just
about busking.
Yeah.
Busking.
I guess so. Yeah.
He has a story about that also.
What is that?
There are a few
Busking.
youngsters who have come to me. They buy a typewriter from me and they say, we do busking. One girl, she said, I sit outside a bookstore,
Yeah.
so with the typewriter in my lap.
Yeah.
Any stranger walking up to me, speaks to me for a few minutes, and I type a few lines, maybe in the form of a poetry or a quote or something,
Poetry,
and hand it over. And by and large, it's free. Wow. That's busking.
That's
Youngsters do it out of hobby. And it's very popular in
So
Bangalore.
there are two anxieties there. I know, not the excitement.
Yeah.
One is that you're getting 4 lines of good poetry, good thoughts,
Yeah.
and immediately what you're feeling at that time, it seems the girl catches on that. The expression of the visitor is caught in that 4 lines of poetry.
Right.
So it serves both purposes.
I think you just given me an idea for a new enterprise.
it
Thank you for
is.
that.
Busking is getting popular by the
Right.
day.
Okay. So, what about the staff? I heard that you have. You tell me, right?
Yes. I normally tell people that there are many people who come and ask me a direct question, how come you are still continuing in typewriters? So I give them these 3 reasons. One is my family tradition, 1912 onwards. And the second is my staff, which is like a family to me. My senior most technician, he is working for Universal Typewriter Company for the last more than 40 years. Even my peon who goes and delivers the typewriters today, he is with me for the last 40 plus years. With my grown-up children doing their own business, money-wise, I don't need to be doing business. But I am doing that because of those people who are working for me or working for Universal Typewriter Company for that matter. I can't say pack up and go. I'll continue as long as they want to continue.
And who's the newest person?
Well, a 20-year-old employee is a new person. She is working with me for the last 20 years. She is from Kerala.
From last 20 years.
Yeah,
So she's not 20 years old. She's
Yeah.
working for 20 years. All right. Oh.
20 years.
She's the newest person.
Yeah, she is the newest
We
person.
have a youngster now who's joined the
Now,
team.
of course, my son is prompting me that you must induct some youngsters also. So I am doing that also. I'm trying that. But
boy.
youngsters are not showing much of interest in repairing typewriters or selling typewriters.
You know, from an entrepreneur perspective, if I can move this conversation now from typewriter to an entrepreneur perspective, retention is so tough. Retention is very tough.
Yeah.
Retaining good employees in the organization is a very tough thing. So when you're saying, right, 40 years and the newest person is 20 years, I would love to know what is your magic? Like, what is a formula? What is the golden rule?
There's hardly anything like a golden rule. The only thing is personal touch from day one. We talk like a family. I don't talk to them as if they are my employees. From day one, I talk to them as if they are my children. And that works. And they also give me regard and respect. Now, my senior most person who manages the entire office, even in my absence, he's been with me for the last 42 years. And financially, he's so well off that he can very easily afford to be at home, not doing any business, because he's also now 60 plus years. And he joined me at the age of 20 or maybe less than that. But he is also continuing because of his passion of going to the office, doing some work. Getting money is secondary for him, but he enjoys working. And he enjoys the bonding that we have with each other now. I know everybody in his family, he knows everybody in my family. So it's like a family extension. That's beautiful.
So actually, I have a question there, and there's a very important one. I started out on this note when I started business. And it didn't work for me, to be honest, the whole family approach. I initially did that. Instead of family, I call it a community approach. We are a community. Where I found it to not work is um, at some point, business seems to have its own space, and family relations and bonding seems to have its own space. For example, on a bad day, if somebody doesn't perform well, or there is a deadline which is not met, or there is a mistake which is made, then how do you, because you have made it work, so then how do you approach that?
I'll tell you very frankly, there's nothing called scolding in my organization. I have never scolded my employees.
Really? Is that true? Is that real?
It's
I
real.
have to add
Though I
a
need
few
to,
things
though I
to
need
it.
to mend them very often. They do make mistakes. They don't work the way I want them to work, but I never scold them.
Okay.
I think I am successful because I can put my views into their mind without scolding them in the right manner. I think that is what is working for me. And another very important thing is that in good old days, money was not that important in general. Relationships were given much more importance than money. Today, youngsters will quit a company for just a 5% raise in some other company. Loyalty to the company is not as important as the money coming from that.
A bit of addition to this, because as a newcomer in the family business that I was seeing, what I felt in the last, now I'm a part of this business association that we all have with the employees and the secondary people who join in later also, even customers. You need some pacifiers besides the boss, as we were taught in the humanity aspect of studies, that you need a son of a bitch at the top.
Oh my God.
And,
Now it's become a
and-
podcast. All right.
and then you have to have somebody who runs the organization. So sometimes, when he calls up in the morning and asks who's present and who's not present as a boss,
Hmm.
I'm telling you the most intimate conversation that we've had regarding this.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about the pacifiers which are needed.
Yeah.
I tell him, Rajesh, you have never been an employee. You've always been employing people. I have been an employee, right?
Yeah.
And I used to hate when my boss would call in the morning and ask who's come and who's not come.
Everybody.
I tell him, nobody likes it. Let them maintain their own business timings. Then my son sitting next to me would say, Ma, let him run the business. You not running. You are a social development person. I said, you need to have a social development person in your business if you wish to succeed and particularly retain people. Because I remember, you have to give your personal input in the sense, like my father-in-law was a do-gooder. He would make some home remedies for treatment of small ailments, for small problems, health problems, issues. My husband, I'm very proudly telling this in front of him, that he started to give them. My father-in-law used to kind of promote, don't drink tea, it's not good for health. So I said, if you say don't drink tea, give them an option. Give them a glass of milk in the day.
Hmm.
How can you teach somebody not to do a particular thing unless he has an option? Now, they can't afford a glass of milk every morning. They come from big families. So you provide. He did start that. कि चाय नहीं मिलेगी हमारे ऑफिस में. No, initially they may have resisted. कि चाय is my need because I get that pep up, Tea is a kind of intoxicant, you get so used to it. दिन में 4 बारी चाय दे देंगे. Rajesh, say no to them. Because if you say no to them, scolding comes in that way. I am not giving you tea because it's not good for you. Don't do it. Then they will resist for a while, but then they will appreciate this, that you are caring for them. So the care in an indirect form, even if it sounds as scolding, would work in any business. I work with underprivileged women and I retain them, for I have people working for me or associated with me. I don't even call them working. They are associates. If you call them associates, they will never hate it. If you say you are working for me and I am the boss, then it doesn't work. Howsoever good you are to them in terms of perks and all, but you have to make them feel that they are a part of you, the bigger unit that you run as a business entity.
For many years, all my employees, first thing in the morning, they used to get was a cup of milk.
Yeah. So I said, do that. And I think it
Just
is,
because I heard from my father, don't take tea. Tea is not good.
and I was there to push him कि उनको बोलते रहते हो चाय मत पियो तो क्या पियेंगे वो? What do they want?
But so then this also from an entrepreneur perspective, this also brings a very important question that because when it comes to your story, one of the most interesting things was also the retention, personally as a business owner, is also the approach also. So when we come from a team approach or a soft approach, right, as we say, then ideally the motivation also gets cool over a period of time and everything becomes a little loose. Or if we have a hard approach, I've seen that as well. People who are like brick strict, very strict. There, people leave very quickly.
The break is much swifter then. The breach is much swifter if you have the hard approach. If you have the soft approach, you can't say you have a medium approach. You have to
That's
have
what
a
I was
soft
asking.
approach. Soft approach only works, but the kind of attitude towards that, making them feel that they are a part of you. Without you, see, you make them feel. Most employees make people feel that I am for you and you can't do without me. But if the employer makes an employee feel that I can't do without you, it has to be reverse. From the grassroots approach also, even in social development, it works very well. Otherwise, even your beneficiaries, see, an employee is a beneficiary. Even the beneficiaries begin to feel that you are doing a good cause for some purpose. Why should you be good to me? Why should a businessman be so good to me? Right? But we tell them, no, it's mutual. I cannot do without you and you cannot do without me. You have to make them feel that you also cannot do without them. And which is true, no? You're not saying anything exaggerated. So I think that approach only works. I have women working with me at the underprivileged level for the last, he would watch for that, 30 years, 40 years. They've gone old with me. They were much younger when they came in. I was, say, 25. They were 15, 16, young adolescent girls. They've gone old, become grandmothers. They are still working for us. Some of them who come do not even work for us. They just sit around
They
and
still
go.
keep the contract.
They keep the contact. Why? Because you have treated them at a human level, which is very important.
It's a whole different perspective compared to what's happening outside in terms
Outside,
of
it is too harsh.
It's very harsh today.
Very harsh. And this rotation of staff is killing for a business, any business.
Also the other way around also. Like
And to tell you frankly, I don't make any effort to do this. It just comes.
yeah.
I don't make any effort. It just comes both ways. And we are so happy with each other.
And when we say that we know, see, we talk about this human resource development, HRD people gauging the sanctity of the job and how the employees should be taken in. HRD people keep doing all those things. But what I feel is the perception that one another has in an organization comes by looking at each other. Your employees would know what kind of a person you are. And you would know. You should have that ability. You should inculcate that ability, that I look at you, look into your eyes, and I know what kind of a person are you. So you will not let go. So even if you are harsh, like he sometimes says that, I as I said, the pacifiers are needed. Over the phone, sometimes he would say, tone down, tone down. I mean, why are you so loud with them?
Yeah.
They'll feel bad. Because I have been on the other side.
Yeah.
See, most employees are not on the other side ever.
Right.
Now, here I have another thing to
Yeah.
add.
Yeah.
Not only employees, even customers. My relations with customers are such
I know.
that typewriter is a product, if one purchases once, may not purchase another one for many years. But the kind of dealings we have with each and individual customer, they remember the relationship with me or relationship with Universal Typewriter Company as such. So much so that I am in touch with many customers who remember me after buying a typewriter some 30, 40 years ago. They keep calling me. And 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the many. And now that we are in social media, WhatsApp and all, children have taught me on WhatsApp, there is a broadcast system.
Yeah.
And you won't believe I have 3 groups of 250 each, 750 customers on my broadcast list who have either purchased one typewriter from me or got one restored from me.
How do you maintain that relationship?
Now, of course, with electronic media, broadcasting and all. Otherwise,
before
they
that?
keep calling me.
I think it comes natural to you. Your vibe is sort of like that. I can see that
Yes.
actually. Yeah. So, how was it to run a business then and now? This is, of course, the political side of things.
No. This is a very
Government side of
important
things.
thing. See, the main difference is at that time, we were running business for profit. Now, I am not doing it for profit. I am doing for the fun of it. And the fun part is number one, most important, which I enjoy is the media exposure. The people coming to me from such far off places, they say, we know you through the website, we know you through this Instagram, which is all new for me.
Yeah.
And to tell you another physical aspect of my business, when after Bombay, we started in Delhi, we had a store on ground floor of main Asaf Ali Road of central Delhi.
Yeah.
We continued business there for a long time. Now after COVID, I have shifted from that place. In addition to that place, we have now come to a 4th floor office, 2-room office in Nehru Place, which is not on the main road, ground floor with a visual, which is, and even the traffic passing through that main road will see the board Universal Typewriter Company. There's nothing of that sort now. Now people come to me because of the relationships we have built over the years. And they keep calling me. And I'll tell you, I can easily say that about 50% of my sale is happening through media exposure, social media exposure or internet or whatever. And 50% of my sale even today is happening because of references. One youngster will call, my friend called me and gave me your number. My father called me and gave me your number. Are you still doing typewriters? I said, yes. It's actually 50-50. 50% of my sale is happening through contacts, old contacts.
You know, this is where the hard question comes. The hardcore question, actually, not hard question. So, there are 8 lakh IT companies in Bangalore. When I did my research, I don't know how accurate this is because I found this on Statistica website. There were 25 lakh plus typewriter sales and production companies in India. Not production, sales, I guess. I mean, registered around typewriter. So if there
25 lakh?
plus companies registered throughout in the past. So if that organized and unorganized. So if that level of competitors were present at one point of time, I'm saying in the past, and today things are
today
moving
it's
forward.
just the other way around. Today there's hardly anyone doing typewriters.
No, so actually that was not the question. The idea was how did you keep the product going through all these years? You know, like, and especially COVID. And we talked about partition and we talked about, I don't know how many things, how many stories are there. How did you keep the product going throughout all this time?
Well, first credit goes to the product as such. I'll tell you one simple thing about the product. Godrej people were making refrigerators as well as typewriters. And they were selling both the products at the same time. And the typewriter sales people coming to me from Godrej company, as we were the best authorized dealers of Godrej in the country, which continued for some 10, 15 years, we were the number one dealers of cartridge. So these salespeople coming to us, they used to tell us the difference between a product, typewriter and refrigerator. A refrigerator, they say, is 3 times, 4 times the size and weight. And the total number of components in a refrigerator is 270. And a typewriter has 2,000 components. So it needs the kind of technical support and all, which we provide. And that is the basis.
And
So
how,
as a product,
and how did you push through COVID? How did that go?
the best part is during the lockdown, I got very regular orders. People sitting at home, they wanted a typewriter.
Oh, right. Yeah. So.
And when it started opening up,
Yeah.
we were dispatching.
Oh.
And things happen like this, that somebody says, I have seen you on internet, I want to buy a typewriter. I send the pictures. They say, okay, this is okay. We want to get it painted in so and so color. Okay. I send them the details of my bank. That you pay online and we'll send you the machine. Everything done, and finally the address comes, Andaman Nicobar Islands. Dispatch the machine to this place. And a young 20-year-old girl, she wants it. This happened during COVID.
Even keeping children occupied. Children sitting at home with parents have nothing to do. So give them a portable typewriter. It's a glorified
The best part
toy.
of my selling typewriters
Toy for
today
them.
is that when we started the business, when I joined my family business way back in early 70s, typewriter was the only commercial equipment required in the offices. Now, after the computers, we thought that our business is doomed. And it did take a nosedive to start with. But then some people, thanks to the product's total life and the kind of work it does, I used to even propagate that computers cannot do what typewriters can.
In what way?
Producing instant hard copy,
The feeling, the
no
rhythm.
mistakes, all these things.
Engagement with
Engagement.
the machine.
You are engaged with the
You
machine.
are engaged. I have to tell you this, that I suffered what do you call it?
A bit of stroke.
A bit of stroke, a hemorrhage in the brain,
Oh.
a little bit of it. And before that, when I was, I didn't even come to know that I suffered this. I kept doing all my activity, except that I could not read my WhatsApp. And I shared this with my children, and my son said, Ma, you've stopped reading and writing. Take to your computer, sit down on the computer. I said, no, I'm unable to do it. I'm unable to do it. Not much physical or physiological problem, but my mindset said, why can't I read? I was reading 2 lines instead of 1 line. And my friends are continuously asking me, where are you? Where are you lost and all? And then he got me a typewriter at home. With all these big business, we don't have a typewriter at home. So I said, okay, get me a working typewriter. I'll start doing it. And believe me, I could not. But I tried. I felt disturbed. That why am I not? Because I can do the typing.
Yeah.
So I was not able to do it. But that engaged me, and I became little better. But still we went to the doctor, and he said, no, thanks to your grit or whatever, you had a stroke 3 days ago.
Oh.
And about which you did not come to know. So engaging with the machine kept me going. And my doctor told me, a neurologist, that just because you just went on with that, I told him all this, that I was doing the typing when I was not able to see my WhatsApp. He says that kept you going, otherwise you could have had another attack.
Yeah, generally it is very healthy to use a typewriter.
Yeah, because
So
there's
it's
no strain
healthy.
on the eyes.
It's
Not
healthy.
only that, many a
healthy.
times, youngsters have come to me. They say, doctor has advised my
Yeah.
uncle to use a typewriter because his fingers were not he's not very good at writing.
It treats dementia.
Typewriting.
Yes, it treats.
It can
You
treat
remember,
dementia, it can
because
treat...
ASDF yaad nahi aayega na, then your mind and body gets attached. You understand why this severing of the brain contact is limited when you age.
Oh.
Whatever happens, I won't talk about the medical terms, but then the connect between the brain and your manual abilities reduce.
Oh.
I have
Minimize.
sold typewriters to people on health grounds.
Yeah.
The doctor has advised my uncle that his fingers are not working well,
Yes.
and that's because of the brain orientation with fingers. It will work very well if you start using a typewriter.
You know, the most fascinating thing about this conversation is every time you're talking about typewriters, you have this very big smile that is coming up on your face, and your whole face is glowing up.
My father had some nervous issue again, and I took him to a neurologist. He said, Your hands are not taking the orders from the brain.
Oh.
That's why you are suffering whatever you are suffering. So your hands are not taking the orders from the head of the department.
Mm.
So how do you enliven the life force in the brain? Is type. I
Have you
remember
seen
this is
people
30
typing
years ago.
blindfolded? Have you seen people typing blindfolded?
No, it's possible.
Yeah. Of
During
course.
COVID,
Right.
I was sitting at home using a typewriter, and my son walked towards me. I looked at him and I continued typing. He was surprised. You can type without looking at the keyboard. I said, yes, of course. My fingers remember ASD.
Oh my god, that's so
Yeah, it does. So brain
And in fact, there is a very proper information about this, that many computer training centers make their pupils sit on typewriters to start with. Learn the keyboard on the typewriter, then switch to computers. Here again, I can give you a very interesting actual story.
Yeah.
I was sitting in my office and one lady called up. Typewriter lena hai. I said, mil jayega. This is after the manufacturing stopped. I said, mil jayega. She said, 10 typewriter lena hai. I said, 10 mil jayega. My boss wants to talk to you. I said, put me on to him, but before that, tell me who is your boss. He said, Mr. Punj from Punj Lloyd wants to speak. So he came online. He said, Rajesh beta, I know typewriters तो आजकल नहीं बनते हैं, but मुझे क्यों चाहिए typewriter आप पूछो. मैंने कहा सर आप बताएं. He says, मेरे native place पे मैंने एक vocational center start किया है. Tailoring class, this, that, so many things. And now they say computer class. मैंने उनको बोला कंप्यूटर पे वो बैठेगा जो पहले टाइपराइटर पे टाइप करेगा. Ask me why. मैंने कहा सर आप बताएं. He said, so and so year, my son got selected in MIT.
Yeah.
He was going to study there. And I told him that now that computers have come, you are sending emails and all, better you learn typing on a typewriter. He says, my son did not pay heed to my suggestion and he went. Next semester, 6 months later, my real brother's son also got selected for MIT. I gave him the same suggestion. He took my suggestion seriously. He went to a typing class center. He learned typing for about a month. And now they are both sending me emails from there. And my son says my brother is much faster on the computer because he took the initial training on the typewriter. So this is a fact.
You know, but when it comes to typewriters also, so my story with this whole typewriter thing is not just about my dad. It was my birthday on May 20th. And my sister booked, she went all over the internet to find a typewriter because she knows I'm crazy about typewriters and I wanted to buy one. And I went to Amazon and looked for typewriters. And the only typewriter I could find there costed 75,000 rupees, which for me was like, nahi, abhi nahi, baad mein le lenge.
I know.
So it was like that. So my sister searched away and this was in Czech Republic. She found a person who sells typewriters relevant today. And she got a typewriter for, it was for 35,000 rupees.
Wow.
And it came to India and it was a surprise for my birthday. And it was a surprise party and everything planned. 2 days before my birthday, when it reached India, the customs people called my sister and they said that the custom duty on this is 40,000 rupees.
Oh my God.
So it will be 1 point something for a typewriter.
In today's date, they are charging
This
that
happened
much
returned
custom.
it.
May, right? This happened a couple of months
I
ago.
hope you returned it.
Yeah, she returned it. She's like, nahi, itna pyar bhi nahi hai bhai se. So she just sent the typewriter back.
Absolutely.
So I was so disappointed, I was so sad. And then she told me also, why would she tell me? She told me also, कि देख तेरे लिए typewriter book किया था. I was like, क्या? I was so excited. She's like, हाँ, लेकिन वापस भेजना पड़ा. Because this is the thing. Then I was on Instagram. I was just scrolling through random reels. And I came across this link. and I saw the number of typewriters from different categories and brands that you have. So have you shifted your business model to restoration completely? Are you restoring typewriters now?
No, we were doing that earlier also. We are doing that now also. The only thing is the kind of customers we have a different profile altogether. In good old days, typewriter was the main office equipment. And we were supplying typewriters like 20 typewriters to BHEL, 105 typewriters to Engineers India Limited, and individual professionals, one given to the chartered accountant, one for the lawyer's office, all that. Very few individuals came to my store to buy a small portable typewriter. And at that time, I'm talking of early 70s, I used to tell them that good that you are using your own typewriter. In India, typing is considered to be a clerical job. Whereas in America, even the president of America has a typewriter and he uses it.
He has? Oh.
I'm talking of
Confidentiality.
70s. In 1970s, the president of America used to sit on a typewriter and type himself. Whereas in India, typing was considered to be a clerical job.
Why the difference in perception? Then, I mean, back
It's
then?
only secrecy.
No, in the
Secrecy.
Western world, there were individuals who were using typewriters very regularly as their own typewriter, besides giving dictation as and when. So it was not only an office equipment, it was a personal equipment in those good days also.
Well, why
And
the
now-
president was using was secrecy only, no?
Huh?
Like all my bosses were using typewriters only. Not computers.
Educated people were using typewriters personally also in those good old days before I'm talking of before computers. BC. BC for me is before computers.
When I started my business, only a couple of years ago, I went to my dad and said, "मैं RJing छोड़ रहा हूँ, I want to start a business." So my dad is a businessman. And he's been doing it for a very long time. So he said, business आजकल थोड़ा easy है compared to how it used to be back in the day. It is very tough,
Yeah.
but still it is tough. You have to consider what all it comes with, blah blah. So this was a conversation I had with him. But when I when I talked to my friends who are now business owners and I talked to them about it, they say, यार आज ना business बहुत tough है इंडिया में. Earlier it might have been easy. Which is the truth? Was it easier to start then or is it tougher now?
I think it was tough that time also. It is tough now also. The only thing is the parameters have changed. Earlier, to do good business, you needed a space which was so properly visible. As I told you, shop on the main road with a big board was good enough to attract customers.
Right.
Today, that social media is doing that. Why I am still selling typewriters today is because of the social media, frankly, because of the electronic media. And it works.
Outlet has changed.
The outlet has changed.
What about government support? Like, how was it better then, or is it? I'm not going into political point of view. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Government support was not there that time. It's not there now. Businessmen are not getting any support from government. We have to file all the taxes. We have to do all the paperwork. Even if my sale is much lesser now, I go through the same GST registration. I have to go through the same GST filing every month. No support as such.
No, but may I say that business supports government? Government
Yeah,
doesn't
business
support
supports
business.
government. That is a very valid point.
Business supports.
We pay taxes. We do everything. Government doesn't do anything for us.
Industry
I don't
supports
see anything.
business. I mean, who says government supports business? Government ought not support business because they are the wealth creators. Government only has to manage the wealth.
I hear point of views of people who are coming from different countries. A couple of my friends who moved out to Germany or Canada, and they say कि पता है यहाँ ना business करना काफी easier है compared to India. I don't know the truth because I'm here back in India. So, but they say कि here there's a lot of support that you get if you're a Canadian. Like if you're from that place. Since you have a legacy, right? It's been 100+ years and you have so much business experience. What are the suggestions or advice that you have for young business owners, A? And B, suppose theoretically if government is listening to this, what do we need to do in India to change the setup? What can we do for the businessman the country?
The government formalities should be very simple so that one can compile with that easily. That is the only thing I can say about the government. And about doing business then and now or whatever, the basic thing is your rapport with your customers, your rapport with your colleagues. I will call them colleagues, not staff. All that is required. Rapport with the customer is also very, very important. Even if I am selling one small typewriter ribbon, which is just worth 125 rupees to a person who purchased a typewriter from me 20 years ago. राजेश जी एक रिबन मिल जाएगा, हाँ जी मिल जाएगा. आई विल नॉट सिंपली से हाँ जी मिल जाएगा. हाँ हाँ मिल जाएगा, आप कहोगे तो आपके पास पियोन भेज दूंगा, वो लगा भी देगा हाउ टू इंस्टॉल इट. इसे नहीं नहीं, आई नो हाउ टू डू इट. So rapport with the customers, I think, is
I
the
think that
most
the
important
question
thing.
you are asking is how to change the setup, the basic principles that the government and the businessman has.
So
That's what.
the thing
Government
is,
and businessmen have, I have only one suggestion for government. They should make things very simple for business people. Like filing income tax return, you have to give so many details.
I also meant in terms of support, probably financial support schemes, policies.
Well, there are certain priority sectors where the government may be helping, but mine is not a priority sector. I want to bring it as a
Why
priority
should government help
because the product is, vanishing. So I want government to help. I don't know how they will help. I want to build a sanctuary for typewriters in the form of a museum where I can display something like 1,500 machines. I am asking for some space. Nothing has come forward so far.
Because I mean, in my small experience, I've been only 5 years into business, but in my small experience, I found it horribly tough. Horribly tough because from staff leaving, joining, retention rate being less, to finding skilled labor, which is a very big task in this country,
Yeah.
and getting them and finally getting them up to the mark where they're skilled, and then they leave. And then retaining clients, finding the right clients, understanding what profiles you're going for. It's horribly tough actually to run a business in India. Because of the podcast, the idea behind the podcast is to be absolutely honest. So I'm being absolutely honest. I found it horribly tough, but it got one degree better every year. That's all. So in 5 years, I might have got 5 degrees better. That's all. So that from that point of view, I meant
You're
that
asking.
you have a lot of experience in running an organization. So what are your suggestions or advice for young business owners on where they need to correct apart from this?
I will only say relationship with your colleagues as well as with your customers. You develop relationships. If the customer doesn't honor, don't feel disheartened. Continue with that approach. Continue with that approach. Even if a small customer, give him as much value as a relationship as for a big customer.
May I just tell you one thing that I have heard from friends who are in big business of exports, etc.
Right.
They have told me the China experience. What the government should do for young entrepreneurs is that they make pool. What they do in China, they make a pool of trained people and register with themselves, with the government. And when you need a person, you talk to that pool.
See, now that's a good
That's what-
support. Now that's
That's
good
a good
support.
support.
That
Yeah.
China has.
That
yes.
China
Yeah,
has.
right.
Because a friend of mine
We don't
who's a
have it
young
in India.
entrepreneur, he told me, and I told him, why China is progressing so much. So he explained to me that this is what, कभी भी हमारे तो कभी भी उठ के चल देते हैं. कोई बीमार हो जाता है, कोई कुछ करता है. And we are all operating on humanitarian grounds. Business doesn't operate on humanitarian grounds too much.
Right.
Because you need to produce results, you need to generate funds, you have to support your own setup.
You have to work
if,
for
If the
profit.
pool is there and if the liabilities then fall on the government. See,
Right.
if a person comes from that pool, you will not be liable to take care of, say, his health insurance or whatever. All those things which are needed for an employee. I think that's a big support the government can give in India also. In Bangladesh, I am told they are the greatest supporters of, a big supporter of young entrepreneurs, because we visited New Zealand and I saw all the stuff, the textile export and all was all in the hands of Bangladesh. Whatever we picked up, it was made in Bangladesh. So I came back
Yeah,
and asked
business is
my
doing good in,
friends, what
in
is
Bangladesh
this?
because of their support.
Because I, by virtue of being an entrepreneur in the social field, because I empower women, and you can imagine how tough it is for us.
And ma'am, what work do you do? Like, what is the hands-on job there? And
My
what is the name
hands
of the
on,
organization?
I'm registered as Sahas India, Social Action for Human Solidarity.
Okay.
I started this with the name uh, to actually resist from taking foreign funding. I worked with the World Food Program as a journalist, as a social development person, as an anthropologist, and also worked with local NGOs, which is the biggest NGO in Delhi, which is called Deepalya. And for them, 3-4 years, and for say 10-15 years in the at the world level, UNICEF and World Food Program, where I saw the lot of international funding was flowing in, and we were getting fat salaries. And when it came to actually, I think that's valid even for young entrepreneurs doing business also, hardcore business. But I'm talking of business with the underprivileged, because we encourage them to be on their own. So how do we support that? So I started this with an idea that I will do this because in India we have known us ourselves to be do-gooders. My mother had a role to play in social development, because when she fed the persons who were working at home, I'm sure your granny and your mother was also doing the same. We would not eat food until we made food for the cow.
Yeah.
All that was happening. So I said, our country is almost reduced ourselves to the state of beggars. In the sense, when foreign funders came to us, I was heading an organization. They would ask us, where are you spending money? Because we would have big budgets. We were getting salaries. The budgets were being utilized for purposes which were not the real purposes. Like for, say, carpenters at the grassroots, or the potters at the grassroots, they would say, my foreign funders would say, all this is really, you people, Indians are really good at it. Why are you taking money for this? I said, no, we are not asking for money for this. We are asking money for hospitals. The health ground is to be taken care of. But it all depends on the bosses of the organizations which are being run not by social development professionals. There, the loss was big. The retired army and the Air Force personnel will come to the grassroots and dictate their terms, and the money would come not being utilized for the right purposes. So if you need money for economic upliftment, you get money for, the hidden agenda, to sum it up, was different. So I thought I would do something on my own. And for that, I started disliking money. I said, money is the culprit. And to even the organizations who were doing good, you may have seen in Bangalore is, I think, ripe with those organizations who are do-gooders, but they're all foreign funded, primarily, most of them. So I said, accept money, any involvement by the people at large.
Also, it's the thought process also.
It's a thought process. So I started this social organization where I had professionals from different fields, doctors, economists, my friends in college. And they said, you go at the grassroots. Forgive us, we cannot do this because your husband is supporting you. We have to make our living. So we will do our way. I said, okay, you do your way, but just let us register this organization. At least be like-minded, as you say. The mindset has to be the same. So I started this
What prompted her to start this was
25 years ago.
as a
25 years ago, down the line, I started a school with 10 children.
School.
School
school for underprivileged.
for underprivileged. Free,
Oh, that's amazing.
free
Can
education.
I just
Okay, thank you. So this is
because we have here something called Orphe.
Okay,
That means what we do is we do research for free school concepts. And we already have done more than 1,000 pages of research, and we are planning on presenting it to NGOs for this. And I'm really connected to that cause. That's why. Please go on. Sorry.
So
Yeah.
please stay connected and we will also talk further. And to sum it up, I would say I was only mainstreaming the underprivileged. I'll pick a child from the lowest level, in the sense a cobbler or a vegetable vendor on the street. 10 children only. I called it an experiment. NEEV, I call it, Novel Experiments in Educational Ventures.
That's beautiful.
And the small school where only 10 children, and just because I called it an experiment, I thought I may fail, I may succeed. So I started it and gave them an environment, because by my experience at the NGO level, world level, as well as UNICEF, I felt that we give them the worst of infrastructure and expect them to do well. I would question, why should these children come to school? Unless you give them a better environment, what they have at home. They live in a jhuggi and you put them in a jhuggi and then tell them study. Why should they study? They will, वो तो कंचे खेलेंगे,
वो तो बच्चे
वो तो खुश हैं, वो तो
exactly,
बच्चे हैं.
वो तो बच्चे हैं.
So I gave them the environment of a 5-star school, small school which he funded, because he knew my dream that I want to start this without money. पैसा नहीं लगाना मुझे लेना.
So just a big heartfelt.
I said पैसा नहीं चाहिए. People used to hate me. कि क्या करें फिर हम? You don't want money. I said, give me your support. But first of all, tell me, are you like-minded on this? Do you support this cause? Yes, I do. Then what do you do? This is just, for me, that's enough. And come as a volunteer. I don't give money, I don't take money. A teacher will be a volunteer, and the teacher will not be a third-rate teacher. My teacher will be the topper in the university who wants to do this free work. And I got 3 teachers. You know, if you have the intent, what I believed was, I trained my teachers, not that they all came as trained, but I trained them, and I would train them at Lady Irwin College. And I went to Lady Irwin College and told them, I don't give money, I don't take money. So train my teacher in your school, because they have a school, training school. So
Teachers training school.
Teachers training school. So I said, you go get trained and come to my school, which is Sahas. And will you believe, my teachers were asked by Lady Irwin College that you come and join us, because they were so good. So you know what they said? And the response was, no, we are committed to Sunita ma'am. Because she runs a school for underprivileged and she does not charge them fee. She does not give me salary, and my mother-in-law doesn't want me to go too far. So
But without any money, what about books? What about?
I'll tell you, local area networking, I called it, LAN. Computer was very new, so I caught on to that term, local area networking. They deal with Godrej, day in and day out. So I said, Godrej is next door from where I live and where my project is. I want a refrigerator from them because I want to start a kitchen for the underprivileged. I approached, I asked my brother-in-law, who's his elder brother. He said, Sunita, forget it. They won't give you a refrigerator. I said, you don't fall in between. You don't tell them that you are known to me, and I'll go to them. I'm not going to give your reference or my husband's reference. So I just wrote a letter to them, wrote a mail to them, that this is what I do, and I don't pay to anyone, and I don't receive any grant. Give me a refrigerator for my kitchen where underprivileged women would come and cook. I did not get any reply, but one fine day, a man comes from Godrej, a person, senior person from Godrej, manager, comes, and my girls call me and say, ma'am, koi Godrej se aaya. They're not even literate. They did not know how to pick up the phone. My landline was there at that time. वो नहीं था, मोबाइल नहीं थे. So I said, जो भी आया उसको बिठा दो और उसको बोलो कि हम ये सब करते हैं. हमारे यहाँ ये 10 बच्चे आते हैं और इनके माँ बाप कभी स्कूल नहीं गए हैं, कभी देखा नहीं है, और यहाँ ये पढ़ते हैं. कौन पढ़ाता है? वो टीचर है. That's all. पढ़ाता भी क्या है? It was a play-way school. I take only the late entrance. Say if the child is 5, I don't refuse, because he must get in. Then I'll take 4, then I take 3, whosoever is kind of loitering about in the street. So this person comes and sits there for half an hour and goes back, and I get a call from Godrej that, ma'am, we have decided to give you a refrigerator. And the refrigerator came. I have not met, till date, I have not met anybody from the Godrej. And in the last 10 years, I've got 3 Storewell cabinets,
Storewell, Almirah, everything Godrej is giving.
a oven.
That is one funding. And the other source of funding is, my brother comes from US. चलो भाई आपको भी दिखा दें स्कूल 10 बच्चे पढ़ रहे हैं वहाँ पे एंड ही पुट्स हिज हैंड इन हिज पॉकेट सुनीता भाभी कितना पैसा चाहिए आपको इसके लिए
The
No
peasant
money.
is no money.
You buy them uniform. Okay.
Oh,
10 children
nahi,
uniform.
He bought us a harmonium. I said, they are learning music and I don't have a new harmonium.
So
Then he
instead
said,
of
"Okay, I'll
instead
buy
of
you a
cash input, kind input.
So Godrej has been a regular supporter for us. Anytime I need. Then we started a cafe for these women. And we needed another refrigerator. They said, ma'am, anytime. Come.
Here, I'll give you
So
another.
they got educated and you got them jobs as well.
Of
That
course,
is the
they're running
reward.
their own setups.
No, that is
entrepreneurs.
underprivileged women. I'm talking of children. She started this good 25 years ago. And today,
Oh my God.
through our children,
You will
they
weep.
have done the networking. Children are now writing such things, son of a cobbler.
Yeah.
And he is now writing a message on WhatsApp.
To me.
Sunita ma'am, I cannot forget my first year of free schooling in Neve. After that, you got me admission in Tagore International School with free ship. I cleared my 12th with so much percentage, got admission in so-and-so university. And today I am working as manager administration in this corporate office. That is the reward she is
They're
getting now.
doctors, engineers. Their parents have never gone to school, have not seen
And
school.
parents are still angutha chap.
This story, see, I'm not here to talk of my achievements or anything, but I'm just telling you the process. The process was then when Godrej became one supporter, then some exporters became our supporter because
Ma'am, we need to do one more podcast.